Good afternoon, good morning, good evening. Welcome to the Chicken Box. I hope everybody's having a fantastic day. If you haven't smiled today yet, it's time to at least smile for yourself. It makes you feel better. Jay, how are you?
I'm doing very well, sir. How are you?
Good. You trying to hold that smile
Yeah, a little bit, a little bit. Nah,
in?
I'm good.
Let it out. If you've never heard of us, we're powered by the 132-year-old oldest Black media family owned company in the world, the Afro American newspaper, as it formerly it is and kind of isn't. We're more like Afro News now. We've evolved into a media company. But the Chicken Box, if you're not from the DMV area or the Baltimore area, it's four wings, fries, salt, pepper, ketchup. I get hungry. I think I'm gonna have to start eating, Jay, before I do this
You,
show.
you definitely do, man. You definitely.
Man, every time though, but you got to bring the picture. So when you come to Baltimore, you got to get yourself a chicken box. You're gonna
Sure.
find one somewhere. Just Google it whenever you get here. But on this chicken box, we get to speak our truth. We get to stand on things that we believe in, or maybe we don't believe in, and that's good. You know why? Because sometimes people don't like you just because you do not think like you do.
It's
What a
true. It's
boring
true.
world. That's a small mind. You know what I mean? I,
Right.
I shouldn't call it a small mind, but it really is. Anyway, we don't have to like the same things. We all don't have to like chicken boxes. Some people like grilled, air fried, or whatever else. I'm getting off on a tangent a little bit, Jay. But today we talk about Black people versus financial fluency. I don't
Yes.
even know if we even say that in the Black community. Are you financially fluent? I am not sure if that is used across the land, but it needs to be. We have a special guest today who's going to join us to really help us give us some insight on financial fluency and where we as a people need to be going, and we need to catch up. So anyway, without further ado, I'm going to welcome to the stage Mr. Blair Smith and Jay Jackson, if you do the honors of giving him the beautiful introduction he deserves.
All right. Mr. Blair C. Smith is a senior director of the Center for Financial Markets at the Milken Institute, with over 20 years of experience in financial services and capital markets. He leads the center's access to capital and strategic innovative financing initiatives to enhance economic and social impact. Mr. Smith also leads the Institute's work on impact investment, including CDFIs and Opportunity Zone funds. Mr. Smith was the founder and CEO of Promethean AB Strategies, LLC, a strategic consultancy focused on helping diverse-led asset management firms achieve their goals. He is the former chief investment officer of the Upper Manhattan Empowerment Zone Development Corporation, a CDFI, which is a community development financial institution. Mr. Smith was appointed an adjunct professor at Columbia University's Graduate School of Business. He is on the board of the Arthur Ashe Institute of Urban Health, as well as the Afro newspaper and Afro Charities boards. So, Blair, thank you. Welcome to the show.
Happy to be here, and I'm smiling. Thanks, my cousin.
Awesome.
And I'm now hungry too.
Right, that's what the chicken box will do to you. Rico and anybody else, peace and blessing to you as well, tuning in and listening in. We're getting into financial fluency. Blair, when
Oh, I think you got hung up
I'm
a little
sorry.
bit.
I think that got hung up.
oh
Right.
man, maybe I'm
No,
in the
there we go.
hotel. I'm in hotel Wi-Fi. I hope it is picking up. I might have to move closer to the router. I'll be in the hallway if that happens. But Blair, when what
Okay. I think maybe.
Every time he tries to ask me a question about money, it freezes.
Yeah, it's a conspiracy, I think. So,
Think so. Nobody wants to know how to get rich.
this is what they're trying to do to us people. Right.
um,
Black people trying to talk about money and now they want to cut the internet off. Anyway,
Mhm.
go ahead, Blair. Did you hear my
So,
question? Jay, did you hear my
no,
question?
what's your
no, we
question?
didn't. We didn't hear it.
All right, last time, when you hear the words financial fluency,
Mhm.
what comes to mind?
Well, when I think of financial fluency, I think of an understanding of not just what is a bond or what is a stock, but also institutions. What are the institutions that manage the money? You have to have an understanding of that to be financially fluent in this country.
So Blair, let me ask you sort of a foundational question.
Mhm.
Now, sort of more than ever, the financial markets are in disarray, to say the least.
Yes.
What are the common misconceptions you see with personal sort of financial fluency or money management in the Black community, especially around this time? Because there's a lot of
Around this time, I see people giving a lot of money away,
okay,
and they give it away a lot of different ways. There are a lot of people that are making money off people who rent. There are a lot of people who are making money off of people that own things temporarily and they don't really own it.
right,
You have to own things. You have to understand what equity is. Equity is another word for ownership. That's important. So a lot of young people are getting very smart and they'll say, well, Blair, tell me something I don't know. That's, now that we have access to information through ChatGPT or the internet and Google, we can Google any term we want to if we don't understand what it is. A lot of young people are like, you know what, Blair, I already know this stuff. I'm good. I don't need to know anymore. Just tell me what I need to know to get by day to day. That's a misconception I wish we would get rid of. Just believing that all you need to know is what you need to know to get through the day to day. If there's one thing I would change about our community, about people who look and sound like us, it's that. That all I need to know to be an artist or be an entertainer or to be whatever, an athlete or whatever, is whatever I need to know, whatever limited information, as little as possible. That's something I think that people need to change their mindset around. And I love to give examples. An example of that would be Mr. Impeccable. Mr. Impeccable knows more about money than he discusses. He knows a lot about money. And I take a lot of cues from him. He's really good with money.
Can you guys hear me?
yeah, we can hear you.
Yes.
All right. If you just tuned in, thank you, Blair. Thank you, Jay. We're talking about financial fluency. Put any questions that you have. We have to begin to teach our kids at an early age about financial fluency. And when you look it up, I mean, it just says it's really understanding the application of various, and it's a lot of different financial concepts out there, and how we use that knowledge to make informed decisions with the resources that we have. I mean, because some people can make a lot more money than a person, but they can spend a lot more than they even earn, and turn themselves into a place where they're owing more than they make, to the point where the robbing is. And I always wondered that. You remember that old saying, robbing Peter to pay Paul?
Yeah, absolutely.
Or were they robbing those biblical characters? Who was robbing Peter is what I want to know. Peter had a real temper and an attitude. But anyway, robbing Peter to pay Paul. Uh, Blair, tell me about debt. I mean, how do you feel about how we're handling debt
As a community or as a country or
as a community? Everything we're gonna do. We're skewed. And not skewed. We're really focused on Black people
well,
and people of color. If you tune in and happen to catch a nugget, but we are definitely 100% focused on African, well, on people of color all around the country. Now that we're worldwide.
so that we make up 12% of the population. That's 30 million Black people or people that identify themselves as Black in this country out of 340,000 million. So that's 12% of the population. Or we're supposed to be 12% of the population. So knowing that, we have a lot of financial clout. 12% of anything. If you go to Walmart and say, I'm going to take away 12% of your profits, then they're going to get upset. If you go to Target and say, you know I'm going to take away 12% of your profits, then that gets them upset. And they should be. If you go to Amazon or Disney or anybody and say, I'm going to take away 12% of anything, they're going to get upset. So we, as a community, if I had to put a pin in anything that to do with our community, we do not understand our buying power. That's what we need to focus on. What is our buying power? How can we leverage it? People want to leverage votes. That's good. Nothing wrong with that. But if you went to a bank and said, I'm going to take away 12% of your profits, then that bank would listen to you. That bank would do what you say. That bank would say, you know what? I need to pay attention to these people, because if you take away 12% of anything I'm doing, 12% of my gross or 12% of whatever, then they're going to be upset. Then they're going to want to change policy. And we do not realize that. That's the only thing I would change. If I could change anything, I would change our understanding and realization of what our buying power is.
Absolutely. Jay, how you doing, Byron Dees? Go ahead.
So to that point, right? Like you
Mhm.
mentioned Target, and
Mhm.
they're absolutely, I think over the last 6 months, they've lost like 30%, 37%, last I checked, of their stock value, right?
Mhm.
And it has mostly to do with them going back on their, DEI initiatives and Black
Mhm.
people saying, you know what, I don't need to go to Target for a hot minute, which is great. Look, I love it.
Mhm.
How do we sustain that? How do we I feel like we understand our buying power in that moment, but when it comes to sort of extrapolating that out to shopping at Black businesses, not necessarily exclusively, because it that might be hard depending on where you are in the country or what have you, but maybe taking the majority of your money and putting that into Black businesses, into the Black community. How do we make people aware that it isn't just in boycotts, but in sort of everyday life, just just as you're functioning? How do we get that level of fluency? How do we raise that level of fluency about those kind of that kind of impact, that 12%, as you're saying, impact?
Well, we're spending that 12% somewhere. If we're not spending it at Target, where we're spending it, that's what you need to focus on. Well, we're going to give the 12% to Target competitor. We're going to give it to Walmart. That's for example.
Right.
And so we take that 12% and we measure it. And there are a lot of really smart people in our community. You can measure the amount that 12% represents. Let's say it represents $1 billion or $2 billion. So we're going to take that $2 billion and we're going to give it to Walmart instead of giving it to Target. Target would be like, oh my God, I've got to change the way I do business so I can attract these people back and get that $2 billion back. That's what we need to do, in my opinion.
I was thinking
Measure
of
how much money we're taking away from somebody, and we take that number and we use that as leverage.
All right, let's drill down to the common person who, we hear the rah rah. Let's all boycott Target, right?
You're right.
And it's good for some. For me,
Mhm.
they're off my list. Like I ride by them and it looks like the store is closed. Like
Mhm.
I don't even see the red circle anymore. But for others, sometimes I'll peek in the parking lot and the message is not the same. Some people are like, well, it's close to me. I'm not
Mhm.
changing. I'm not moving. And, no one seems like, not no one, obviously someone, because we're affecting their profits. Like Jay said, would you say down 37%?
Yeah, over the last 6 months. Yeah.
Over the last 6 months. I'm just saying, let's stick with it, people. What I mean? We have to be able to stick with it. And that I think goes back to financial fluency. Even if it used to be something they used to say, pay yourself first, 10% when you get paid, give 10% away, and save 10% and live off the rest. Now, the question is, who can really do it? Right? Or what is your plan? That's one plan I've heard. Have you heard that before, Blair?
I
For
have.
personal finance?
I have. What you do to answer your question is you tell people exactly what they have to do. If you do not shop at a store, let's pick on Target, for example. If you do not shop at Target, then that's fine. If you rely on Target, what are you relying on? The convenience of being able to go there, the convenience of having the app on your phone. What you can do is very simple. Just delete the app. They'll notice that. If you want to visibly demonstrate that you're not shopping somewhere, then just don't go to the store. Just drive the extra mile or two to Walmart. You have to tell people, our leaders have to tell us what to do. What they did during the Montgomery bus boycott is they told those women exactly what they need to do. That was different. Just like you said, getting all rah and excited about a boycott, that's great. But one thing that I learned from Reverend Sharpton when I used to consult for him was that you have to have a goal and objective around a boycott. You can't just boycott somebody without a goal or objective. What is the end game? And Jay, you'll understand.
Of course.
What is the end game of the boycott? What are we trying to accomplish? That's what people need to know. That's when they will rally behind you. If they understand what the end game is, if they understand what the goal is. Young people need to understand what the goal is. What is the goal? If you give them a specific goal, then they'll follow. Then they'll say, okay, if my goal is not to be seen in a Target parking lot, then okay. But give them a list of no more than 5 goals, in my opinion. That's how you change things.
I like it.
Yeah, I like that.
Good. Go ahead, Jay.
Well, yeah, because my biggest concern, and I don't want to stick on the Target thing because I do want to talk about financial, personal financial fluency. But to that point, my biggest concern about the Target boycott is it's just boycotting, and then like where are we going, right? Because at a certain point, you're just continuing the boycott, and for a lot of people, that just gets like, all right, it's been long enough.
It gets old, right?
It gets old, and it's like, well, they still got those deals I would like, So you gotta figure out, right, what is the goal, or what is the I guess permanent replacement for that, right? Because if somebody says, not that it should be Walmart necessarily, but if it's Joe's big box store, and that's the one that's doing what we would like them to do, then that's where we're going. Then at least people can go, all right, we're not doing this, we're doing this, and that that works as kind of a goal, right? To shift all of your money there. But I want to get back into the personal finance aspects. Are there any sort of tools or methods that you use to when you're trying to tell people, like, okay, let's get more financially fluent, let's figure out how to clean up your bills and save money and things like that? Are there any tools or like tricks that people can sort of grab onto, kind of like these little mini goals, so to speak, that they can grab onto to start making decent sized changes in their sort of financial situation right away, especially if they're starting from a low income or even in debt sort of situation?
Yeah. So what our parents used to say, our grandparents used to say, is, do you have your affairs in order?
Right.
The first thing you have to do is make sure that your affairs are in order if you want to create generational wealth.
Right.
So the first thing you have to do is do what makes you bored. A lot of people, they roll their eyes back when they hear this. But you have to go to a lawyer and say, do I have a will? Do I have a trust and estate plan? And now you can go on the internet and do it very cheaply and easily. But if you have 5 kids, you have to make sure those 5 kids are taken care of. So create a trust and estate plan for them.
Right.
That's the first thing. If you say, okay, what can I do today, Blair? Today, I'm going to go out and get a will and make sure that my family is protected. And you say, well, I've got insurance, so my family is protected that way. But you don't fully understand laws. It's like the laws that they're changing around sports. Now that they figured out that we can license our image in college, they're going to change those laws. And so we have to be nimble. We have to be able to say, okay, let me be prepared in case they change the laws. What if they change the laws? One thing I admire about my friends who are African is that they do not live for today. They focus on what if. What if something happened to me and I can't provide in the future for X? That's what they think about. And I admire that. If you were like, what is the one thing you admire about our folks that look and sound like us overseas? It would be that.
So thinking far ahead versus in the
Yes.
moment.
If you are thinking about generational wealth, then you have to think about your generations. Like I think about not just my kids, but I think about their kids. Are they going to be taken care of? You have to take a minute to think about that. I know that our day to day is such that you have to hurry up and get up and go to work and, do what you have to do. That's fine. Nothing wrong with that. But take a minute, take 30 minutes out of your day to think about the future. Think about the kids and think about your kids being adults and think about their kids. And you want to protect them. You want to be responsible. If you're responsible enough to listen to this message, then you're responsible enough to take care of the future. I think.
Absolutely. This is a chicken box. We're talking about Black people versus financial fluency. Um, it's the chicken box. So whatever's coming to our minds that we think about a subject is coming to our minds. But the most important thing that I think I hear is that we have to pay attention. I know we went to Morgan State University, but Blair, and I don't remember one class on budgeting or like when you get out of school, or even if you don't get out of high school or whatever, it's not many classes that teach you. It's a lot of credit card companies they're sitting there right in school when tables just trying to sign you up.
Mhm.
Here, get your first credit card. Get your first credit card. And in college, you're gonna just yes, you sign up because you thinking about spring break, right? And can
Mhm.
you rent a car? Can you get a hotel?
Mhm.
Maybe you need an outfit before you go
Mhm.
somewhere, and you're not thinking nothing about, hey, I need to build my personal credit here. I need to be responsible about money.
Mhm.
And before you know it, you've maxed that thing out. I'm gonna give you case in point about credit cards. And these credit card companies,
Mhm.
people are so tricky, right? I had a card just recently, and I went over uh maybe about $30. Okay. They didn't say you were over your limit. Now, the month before, my payment might have been $150. As soon as I went over the limit, the next month the payment minimum was only $40.
Mhm.
That's ridiculous, right?
That's how they
So
get you.
they are they want you in debt. They want you paying that interest because that is how these financial institutions make money. Okay, what would you say to because I was reading before we got on the show about some principles about financial literacy, earn, budgeting, save and invest, debt management. What would you say about debt management, Blair? Especially as it comes to our young people and credit cards, or
Well,
or our older people, because obviously everybody hadn't figured it out yet.
that goes back to what financial fluency is about. Understanding institutions including credit card companies. So you know that the credit card company, they're in the business of they make money by making sure that you stay in debt. And yeah, when I was 20, I wanted to got my first credit card and I wanted to be able to go to Hampton and go to Virginia Beach for spring break. I remember that very distinctly. And I remember I took my Citibank card with me to Virginia Beach. And I remember spending it and buying a new outfit down there. And I was very happy at the time. But then I looked at the bill. The bill came in the mail. And I was like, wait a minute. I have to pay this back? So it's an understanding of what does it, we have to teach our young people about real life, not just the stuff that they learn in school, but they have to study real life. And you can study real life a lot of different ways. You can ask the people who look like they're doing well. What a friend of mine told me was that money is smart. If you want to understand money, then talk to people that have it. And the people that have it usually have good habits around money. They usually have good ideas. So when you're 20, nobody said to me, talk to somebody with money and understand the way they do things and they develop their habits. Nobody said that to me. That's one way to address the issue.
I agree. I agree totally.
Mm.
Finance. Do people like talking about finance?
No, that's the other thing I would change about our community is this fear of talking about finance and being a rich person makes you a bad person. That is not true.
Absolutely. I think I can see people digitally shaking their heads because even when they just say, "Hey, why don't you go talk to somebody about some financial plans for your family?" Now you make plans. Now I've seen ladies because men we don't do too much planning when it comes to going on a trip. We just say we're going, but the ladies they're going to plan like a year out. They're gonna have everything paid for. They're gonna have the transportation worked out. They're gonna know what restaurants they're going to. Man, we just like, okay, where we going? All right, we gonna be there. And what we doing? I don't know. We're gonna figure it out when we get there. But
Let's get a
we have
backpack.
plan.
You're good.
We have plans, right? But when do we begin to plan, Blair, um, for our finances? Or when do we get to make plans for
When you
like
are
how
20 years old,
that's when we should, right?
yes, that's when you are old enough to know better, when you're 20. So when you turn 20, anybody listening to this, anybody that knows 20-year-old, they need to tell that 20-year-old it's time for you to become responsible. Because when you're 20, you're going to make all the big decisions. What am I going to do with my life? And am I going to have kids or not? That's the age, I think, when it makes a difference about what you're going to do. What career am I going to have? Am I going to be an athlete or an artist or a business person or what am I going to be? So that's when you need to make all your smart decisions about money. And if it's a year older than 20, it's not too late. It's never too late.
Absolutely. I agree with you. I remember at 18, my mother said, when you graduate, you either going to college, to work, or to the army. You are getting out of here. I don't know what we're
That sums it
saying
all
to
up.
our kids now because we spoil them a little bit more. It seems like it just seems like we've given they've had access, and it's good that you want to give kids maybe more than what you had. But in some
Mhm.
aspects, they think we're the fallback or the golden parachute for them. And they don't understand that, okay, now it's time to pay your own cell phone bill, right? You're going to have to learn how to pay your own rent or your own mortgage if you're going to get a house. You have to learn how to look at the money because most of them are very smart of our children and they're getting good jobs making close to six figures as they graduate from these undergrad schools and they're thinking they can live home. And if we
The
don't push them out,
last,
if we don't push them out the door, Blair, Jay, they're not gonna know how to take care of themselves. They're not gonna have the reality check
Yeah,
of
that's fair.
the bad news is that for the last 25 years, the economy has been good and has been able to sustain a lot of young people. Now, as a buddy of mine said, you're going to find out because the economy is about to be very bad.
Yes.
He said you're going to find out who the good investors are and who the bad investors are. And there are going to be a lot of predatory people out there who are going to want to take advantage of the young people. So that's what's going to happen over the next 5 years. a lot of people are going to want to take advantage of folks. It's going to be a winners or losers economy. There are people who are going to look at people and say, well, they're the winners. There are people who are going to look at people and say, well, they're the losers. And you want to be a winner. You don't want to be branded a loser before the age of 20. You don't want somebody to look at you and say, okay, I'm going to prey on you and make you buy a cell phone that you can't afford and loop you into debt with a credit card at a high percentage rate that you can't afford to pay. Because that's what's going to happen. That's how people believe that they become winners, by taking advantage of losers.
The losers and the winners. So these financial institutions. If I let's do a quick recap, Jay. We got to understand the financial institution strategy, so you can make a strategy against it. We need to make decisions, and I know you're not going to know exactly everything you want to do. I mean, it's 50-year-olds who don't know exactly everything they want to do, and
Right.
it's still not too late. And then the last thing is, make a plan. Make a financial plan. So far, those are the three things that I've heard. Jay, what's on your mind about how do you feel about when the children get of age? Did they get to stay? I know you got young kids, right?
I got
So
a
you got-
minute. I got a minute.
You-
She's only
You got a
6.
minute to
I got a minute to decide.
to think about it. See, we have 6 kids, and 4 of them, I say, they're off the payroll. That means they graduated
Right.
from college, right? The payroll is done. I will pay your phone bill for a year, and that's it. After
that,
college,
you're on your own.
you have to be on your own.
Yeah, I think that's
or
fair.
you're not going to understand what it is. Because if God says, "Hey, I'm taking you away tomorrow," what you gonna do? What am I really training you to do?
Right.
I mean, what have I taught you to do as far as how to take care of yourself? If in fact something did happen.
Yeah.
So go ahead, Jay.
Yeah, look, I think there was a time where you had mentioned, like, in college they didn't have a financial class, right? And there was a time that those kind of things were taught in, like, high school, right? Like, it was some form of, like, home economics for young girls, and then, like, all right, here's how you do, like, personal finance for guys, which should probably be both sexes should know both of those things. But there were things that people were taught, like real life skills, and I think there is a lack of understanding those real life skills, right? A lot of people say, "Oh, why am I taking calculus 3? I'm never going to use any of this." I need regular, like, financial information. The answer is you need both, right? Like, and there should be an emphasis on both of those things. Look, Blair, you mentioned in the beginning that we have access to things like ChatGPT and all of this stuff where people want to get, like, a little bit of information, like, just give me something quick, I just throw it in my back pocket and then get out of here. I don't want to know everything. But to me, you have access to those tools, you get to go deeper, right? Like, you can actually, you have to have that sort of wherewithal to be like, look, I want to find out this information. I want to feel like the curtains behind a lot of these systems are down. It's just a matter of us going and hunting to get this information. And it's easier to access now more than ever. Look, I think financial fluency is one of those things where, much like the conspiracy of your internet not working all of a sudden is a thing that does hold Black people back, right? That idea of generational wealth is very real. Like, if you look at redlining and things like that stop Black people from generating this level of wealth, even to my grandparents' generation. Like, it's not 150 years ago. Like, it was in, it's in the 50s and 60s. Like, this stuff happened. So I think we do have a responsibility, especially as parents, to try to get it as together as we can to make sure that we pass that information off to our kids. Because in a way, that's also generational wealth, right? Knowledge is also generational wealth. So yeah, that's why I kind of want to just pick Blair's brain here for a bit on this kind of stuff. I am really interested in where you see the Black community doing well in the financial sectors. Like, what are things that we're kind of because we're always on the cusp of things, like on the bleeding edge of things like crypto and things like that. People go like, oh, they have these like very innovative ideas. And are those things, are we actually learning, or are we just on the trend? And then we kind of get, we get kind of run over because things are just moving so fast. Are we actually doing things that are, that you think are a little bit ahead of some folks? And maybe we need to just kind of focus a little harder on that to really take advantage of it. I'd be curious to know.
Where we will succeed is when we figure out what we can do that AI can't. That's the secret. What can Black people do that AI can't do? AI cannot write a song yet. AI cannot do a lot of things that we do. Kevin, you play a lot of video games. So when you're playing a video game with a sports star versus a real sports star. You know the difference. You can feel the difference. A lot of the things that AI tries to replicate around us is what will save us. What I'm doing, people are like, well, Blair, what do you do? I invest in things like sports and entertainment now because I know that AI will not be able to replicate a lot of those things in the future. That's what I'm directing my kids to do. Invest in the things that AI cannot do. AI does not have integrity or optimism or a lot of intangible things that we take for granted. There's a lot that our community takes for granted. Our faith, our conviction, we take those things for granted. AI does not have that. That is what will save us, in my opinion. Now, I know a lot of people like, well, Blair, that's, but the intangible things that make us human, is what will save a lot of young people of color these days. So my advice is invest in sports. If you look at the stocks of sports companies, the stocks of entertainment companies, like look at Disney, for example. Every time Disney drops below $100, I buy some stock. And I always look at people like, well, Blair, why should I buy stock? Because the stock represents ownership. A bond represents borrowing. So I'm not a bonds person. I do not believe in the full faith and credit of a lot of these bondholders anymore. I probably shouldn't say that, but
fair enough.
that's you guys asked me for candor, so I'm going to be candid. I do believe that a lot of these institutions will survive a lot of what's going to happen over the next 4 years. I believe Disney being one of them. So I'm a big fan of Disney. I believe that when Disney stock drops below $100, that's when I buy it. That's when I scoop it up on my E-Trade or my Robinhood account. That's when I buy it up. And then it shoots up over 100. So on paper, it looks like I'm a very wealthy guy. On paper. And crypto is nice. I think that, the technology is good. But I'm not 100% sure about the value of what crypto will be valued at in the future. I have a little bit, just in case, because you never know.
Never know.
But I don't bet the farm on it. I don't put everything on it. You can't buy a house with it yet. I mean, in some places maybe, but you can't buy a house. When you can buy a house, when you can buy a car that's not a Tesla with crypto. Then when it's got 12 billion people using it, then I might believe that it's something real. But 12 billion people are not using it yet. So in the interim, I'm going to keep investing in these companies through stocks. And that's what I do.
Let me give you guys a fun fact about, since you said about crypto in the house. We consider, and this is the chicken box. We're talking about financial fluency for anybody just tuned in. Brother Craig, we see you out there, Byron, Rico, anybody else, if you're tuning in, share this. It might be one tidbit of financial fluency that will help you and your family. My question is, or my statement was that, did you know what the highest performing asset has been over the last decade?
Probably, if it's a real asset, right, and just an asset.
Just an asset.
Okay. The highest performing just an asset has probably been crypto. Because, and the reason being is that Vladimir Putin has transferred a lot of his wealth into crypto so that he can be mobile, so they can move from country to country.
Right.
That's why he's doing it. Because you
Absolutely.
don't have to go through an airport with it. You don't have to worry about being stopped by somebody. If you have a sack of money, people will stop you. You don't have to worry about that with crypto. I can go from country to country with crypto on my phone, and nobody will stop. And a lot of dictators have transferred their wealth into crypto so that they can travel from country to country and not be stopped.
You are absolutely right. If you Google that, Bitcoin has been the highest performing asset in the last decade. So Paul Bennett just jumped in with a question, and he said, "Why are Black folk of American slave descent continually seeking to be part of white America? Why not fighting
That's a good
within the
question.
system to get out of the system?"
Why are their ice cubes colder than ours? You have to ask, you have to look in the mirror and ask the question. Because I ask a lot of Black people the same question. We have the ability to create our own infrastructure within the infrastructure. We have the ability, we have enough wealth in our community, in my opinion, enough brain power to create our own wealth, to create our own communities, in my opinion. I believe that somewhere and just, just run it. We could if we wanted to, but you'd have to get everybody to agree where and when. That's the hard part. Let's say it's Atlanta. Let's say we want to take over Atlanta. So that would mean we elect a Black mayor and we elect a Black city council. And the population goes there and we move all of our industry down there. And the Hawks and the Falcons are all doing well. And everybody's happy. Morris is happy, Spelman is happy. We all want to move there. Everything that's property values skyrocket to the point where we can't afford it anymore. And so everybody's moving to Stone Mountain or the surrounding suburbs and making them wealthy or Buckhead or whatever. And Tyler Perry's studio down there. And but we'd have to all agree to do that. You'd have to get everybody in the room and decide that's what they're going to do. Can you do that? You could, but you'd have to get everybody to agree to it. Now,
I like
also,
Paul.
go ahead.
No, I said I like Paul's question. He said, "Why not fight within the system to get out of the system?" Now, Jay, you want to tackle that a little bit?
Sure. I mean, look, I think it's a complex question, to say the least, right? I agree with Blair. You would have to have everybody on board in order to do that. And I feel like a lot of times we think about these goals, and I no disrespect, but I think we think about these goals as if this is the 1960s, and we were way more we collectivized, like we were together, right? We had leaders in the community that we all, for the most part, listened to and things like that. That simply doesn't exist in 2025 as much, right? Even with the boycott with Target, right? It feels like we're all together on that, but I've seen so many people go, "Oh, well, they met with Al Sharpton and they asked him," and people are like, "I don't care what Al Sharpton says, I'm still not going." Like, even if he was like, "Yeah, we're back," like I don't think we are as together on those kind of things, and that's not necessarily a negative, right? Like, because the world is a bit different, and I think we feel like it isn't as dire as it was in the 1960s for just like our basic human rights. However, I say all that to say, I'm not so sure that we're not going to find ourselves back in that situation very soon. And so that may be a way that we do pull together. But I think life doesn't feel, even in this moment, as dire as if you read the news, it really kind of does feel that way. But I don't think people feel it in their daily lives yet. So to Paul Bennett's point, I don't disagree fundamentally. I just think that we have to figure out a moment where we go, all right, enough of the nonsense. We all got to come together on this. And I just feel like we're not there as we were in like the 1950s and 60s. I just don't. So
absolutely,
I hope that one day we can, without necessarily dire straits. But I do think financial markets and things like that are not looking like they're going to be doing very well in the near future. And I think we may find ourselves being way more community based than we have been in the last number of decades. So I think Paul's question is great. I just think it's a complex answer.
Oh no, he went on to say Black Wall Street offers proof
100%
that we don't need white folk. White folks told us to stay on our side of the railroad track in Tulsa instead of fighting and marching, and we said cool. The question would be, and we have a lot of people fighting for reparations, right? If in fact there was some land that was given to us somewhere or in every state, will we in fact migrate to that? Is that the kind of world that we're looking to really be in? Are we looking to be in a separate, segregated situation? Or are we looking to,
well, here's what I would say. And then I'll let you go, Blair. Ask the Native Americans how that's worked out. How well do you think here take this land? How well do you think that who's giving it to us? Like what is their incentive, right? Their incentive is not to help.
They did get a couple more casinos than us, sir.
Right, but everything else is real bad. It was real bad. So look, I think Paul's question is great. Like you could have a whole episode on that. But I think at the time as we live right now, working inside the system to create our own thing, I think is the best way of handling that. But I just think we all have to sit down and be like, okay, is this what we want to do? And what direction are we going in? And getting a lot of people to go in the same direction is really hard. Like it just is. You can't get people to agree that puppies are cute, let alone, like move big financial markets. I wish that it were easy. And again, I'm not dismissing it. I think it's just difficult. So
I like the conversation, Paul. Actually, if you would like to come on a Chicken Box and talk about it one day, it would be a great conversation. I'm gonna have our producer Asia put an email up in the chat, and that you can reach out to us, Paul, if you would like to come on. Yeah. And because the conversation, it definitely should be geared toward a whole show. Thank you, definitely, for tuning in. I love what he said. For those who don't want to be segregated, they can stay, and those who want to be, let's go.
Yeah, I'd like to hear Blair's. I'm sorry, I kind of jumped in there, Blair. I'd love to
no, go ahead.
Your thoughts.
So my thought is this. Let me give Paul something to think about. A lot of technology for warfare is always tested on people of color first. Yep. The airplane, they bombed people in Tulsa with the airplane. The Gatling gun was used to wipe out the Native Americans. So whenever they wanted to test out a new means of warfare, they always test out on us first. Mm-hmm. There are other examples of that, where they tested out on people of color first, and then they implemented it in a war. So the reason we don't have Tulsa is not because of Black people, but because they wanted to test the airplane and bombing people from the air. They wanted to test air superiority by bombing people of color first. That's why Black Wall Street got bombed. That's why we don't have a Black Wall Street now. So imagine them doing that today. They want to test a new weapon on Martha's Vineyard or some other place where we congregate. They want to test a new weapon in Atlanta. Or they want to test a new weapon in Chicago. where we congregate.
Did you freeze?
No,
Oh no. Oh, okay. No, I get it. Listen, they tested something a few minutes ago. Craig, so you dropped the bomb on me. The Gap Band. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, look,
Absolutely.
you can look at
That was a real deal right there. But I was saying
Yeah.
they tested the pandemic on us, and some of it got on them too.
but I mean, you can look at the just in Baltimore a number of years ago, they used the technology, that spy plane technology, to track pretty much every citizen inside the city, right? That was unbelievable sort of panopticon technology, and they just did it. And they didn't do it in, some rural town. They didn't do it in a majority white area. They did it in a black area. So like I feel I have a very sort of 50-50 strain on conversations about, like, let's, can we segregate ourselves inside the United States? Because in a lot of ways, I feel like segregation is a tacit permission slip to harm us, because you're over there and the vast majority of other people won't see the things that we do to you because you guys are over there, right? And to Blair's point about history, I mean, this is objectively correct. So it's a scary thing. Like, it is, because it feels like the right answer is for us to, like, start our own Wakanda, but, like, in the U.S., or like, did you find an island somewhere where we can be a sovereign nation? Because those are two very different scenarios.
And what they don't teach us is that there's a historic precedent for trying to start our own Wakanda.
100%. Yes.
That's what Liberia is. If you look at the history of Liberia, it was a bunch of folks that came from here and went over to Africa to try to start their own community. And it did not work out, because they tried to do it to the native Africans, or what they did to us. And that created a lot of conflict over there.
Yeah.
And we got a lot of gems that y'all dropping, guys. If you just tuned in, this is the Chicken Box talking about Black people versus financial fluency, and we've gotten into a lot of different great content and topics. Go to afro.com. We are 100% segregated. No, we're 100% owned.
Wow.
By
okay.
Black.
All right.
No, I mean, we're 100% owned by African Americans for over 132 years. No one can control our pages editorially or tell us what to talk about. That's why we need you to go to afro.com, because one day they're going to wake up and say, guess what? You're saying something we don't like on these social media platforms, and they're going to shut it down. And to stop that, we need to stay connected. So just go to afro.com and get your subscription for less than 2 Uber Eats. You can get a digital subscription, $100 a year. You can get the physical paper that some people still like, and they like to frame certain front pages and certain stories, as well as the digital. Thank you, Asia, for putting it up on the bottom. Listen, this is a fantastic conversation. Financial fluency is a must in order to move forward. And I like what my guy Tyrone Tabon is doing over in STEM City, making digital twins of the city. And we talked a little bit about cryptocurrency, but maybe if Paul comes on and Tyrone comes in, and it might not be a physical thing as far as, because Paul mentioned systems, a separate system. And through technology, a separate system might be digitally, Jay and Blair. All right, it might work in the digital space, because I remember a few years ago, nobody would even make a purchase with their credit card.
Yeah, absolutely.
Everybody was weary, like, oh my God, now they tapping, swiping, and they're doing all kinds of things with that credit card and not thinking twice about it. So we've moved technologically very fast in a short amount of time, and I'm sure over these next 10 years, we're going to move even faster. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to, if you can take one idea out of here, especially get your finances in order, get your life in order, get your life insurance in order. And I like how Blair said how the Africans think. Stop being so selfish. Stop thinking about just you and for today. You need to think about the generation. Yeah, you're going to give them some tools. And if they're younger and they can't take care of themselves, you might want to have more insurance or something on them now. But come up with a financial plan that makes sense. Sit down. Everybody keeps saying, "Oh yeah, I'm gonna do it well. I'm thinking about a trust. Yeah, I'm gonna get some insurance." You were saying that last year,
Right.
or maybe 2 years ago, and you still haven't made a choice. As you don't know, right now, guys, I'm on the box. I'm standing actually on the chicken box, and this is my final words and final thoughts about today and about financial fluency. Take some steps. Stop scrolling and clicking, and start learning. Get yourself a book. It's a book called Think and Grow Rich, and it's a book called Think and Grow Rich: A Black Choice by Dennis Kimbro. Very good starter kits. They got a Rich Dad, Poor Dad. And if you really want to get into something, they got a book called Rich God, Poor God. That one will blow your mind. Start reading things that will strengthen your financial literacy so you can make better decisions and stay away from the traps that the institution has had to keep you in debt, and from the power of moving forward through your dollar making a difference in your own community. And stand on something. We standing on target as a people. Stand on it. I don't want to see you out there when I drive by. I don't want to see you in the stores. Can you just do it for a year? Can you? Please. Anyway, I'm off the box. Jay?
Fair enough. Look, one, Blair, thank you for coming in. That was a really spirited conversation, so I appreciate your time. Look, I think financial fluency is incredibly important. Like I said, I think it is a part of the generational wealth, not just dollars in hand or in an account, but being able to pass that understanding and that knowledge on to your kids. And I think that in some ways, setting your kids up to be able to take care of themselves and to take care of their kids and so on and so forth is an incredibly powerful thing. So you have access to so much information. You have access to people like Blair to listen to him, who clearly knows what the heck he's talking about. And you have access to all of these, digital tools and things like that. Use them, but don't use them to Blair's point earlier, don't use them to get surface level information. Dig in, start talking to people who know what they're talking about, and really listen to people who can help you to put yourself in a better position that can help you put potentially your kids or your family in a better position, because things are likely to be rocky here relatively soon. And it's better to have that knowledge and be able to recall that information and maybe change where you're going and financially set yourself up to get through this. It ain't going to be easy, but if you can make the landing a little bit softer for yourself and your family, that's, I don't know, that doesn't have a value, right? That value is incalculable. So yeah, that's all I have to say about that. Blair, you are now on the box.
The only thing I'll say two things. The first is that the economy is about to get very, very bad for Black people. We're not going to have as much spending money as we used to. So we don't have to worry about people being in Target because they're not going to be able to afford to be in Target. That's the reality. They're not going to be able to afford to send their kids off to college. They're not going to be able to afford the basics like groceries or rent. It's about to get very bad. And it's going to get bad. If it's not bad to you this year, then it's going to get very bad next year. That's one. Two, all the folks that are like, oh, we should do this and we should do that. I'm not bashing anybody that's on now. But where's the black PayPal? PayPal was an easy company to set up. We should have one for us that we can use. There are 30 million black folks in this country. If all of us use a black PayPal, then that will create wealth. Measurable, calculable wealth that you could use to create a community. You could use it to create whatever you want. But that's what I think. And there are no get rich quick schemes. On the internet, I see get rich quick schemes all the time. And people email me and say, Blair, is this real? And I tell them no. If it says you're going to get rich tomorrow, then that's probably BS. It's probably not real. But that's the way that they take advantage of us. Somebody's going to send them a bucket of money, and then they're going to take that bucket of money and they're going to spend it.
Boom. That was a mic drop. This is the Chicken Box. We're talking about financial fluency. You might have picked up a nugget here or there. We could talk on this topic from here till next year, every single week, and probably talk about something different in the realms of financial fluency. This show is here just to get your mind thinking, to get you thinking, and to move to action. Because just thinking about it is just thinking about it. But once you take a step towards the thought that you have put in your mind, then the action is on its way. Remember, we said call a senior. They'd love to hear from you. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Hit the share button and go to afro.com, the oldest Black-owned media company in the world. I'm gonna go ahead and mic drop it for the world until you can prove that there's 132-year-old Black media family-owned media companies out there somewhere. The Afro is it. We've always been for us, informing, inspiring, and educating our people, and we will continue to be as long as God says so. And hopefully that's for another long time. But until then, God willing, we hope to see you, Blair Smith. Thank you for sharing your time with us. We know you have a lot to do, what you do over there at the Milken Institute.
Anything for family. Happy to be here.
And Blair is a fifth generation member of the Afro. Also my cousin, you guys don't know. And both went to Morgan State. And we both pledged capital on the same line. There you go. A little tidbit of just of what's family's all about. Paul, Rico, thank you for tuning in and just giving your feedback. We love to hear from you. We can't see you, but we can feel your energy through the digital vibe. So until next week, Asia, thank you for everything you do behind the scenes. Everybody have a blessed week or day or minute. Remember, smile.
Jay, buy some Disney stock.
I'm going to.
Jay, buy some Disney stock. See you later.
All right.
And everybody else who wants to buy some Disney stock.